Hello and welcome to the Metapod Podcast, the Pokemon podcast that revolves around the evolving meta and on multiple platforms now. I mean, we were already on multiple platforms like Twitch, Anchor, YouTube, but now Sean has thrown us into the abyss of Instagram. And then also I decided from then on to put us on TikTok. So if you would like to find us on Instagram or TikTok, links will not only be in the description below, but to stay consistent with everything else that we got, you can just find us at Metapod TCG, no spaces, underscores, any of that stuff. So Sean was the brains behind the brawl. So was that the right way to say that phrase?
Brains behind the brawl. I love that. I'm the brains behind the brawl.
Either way, thank you for that, Sean. But Sean, how's your week been?
I mean, it's been good. Otherwise, I opened up. Those of you who either have gone and seen the TikToks or the YouTube shorts or the Instagram reels or any of that, there's a lot of content up there if you haven't. It's cool. It's good stuff. But I did open up some really cool packs of cards from this person, Renimu. That's like an artist. And I'll hold a couple of them up on screen now.
Ooh, I like that Gengar.
Oh, the Gengar is like, where is it? Oh, it's this. Yes. It's really cool. They're so goofy. Like this Raichu is also excellent. So I think that the person who made the cards, they're still selling some. They used to sell out quite often, but they might still have some on their Etsy. So support an artist. But yeah, I got some of those packs. There, I still have a few left. I'm almost got a complete set.
Ooh, nice. So, got all 151 or whatever?
Well, 50. I think there's 50 cards in their set.
50's pretty good, though, I feel like.
It is.
That's a good amount for, like, a custom, like, artist fan-made set.
And I will say, I've had a joy. I've had a blast translating the Japanese on these cards. Because there are little, like, jokes and Easter eggs on the cards.
I'll have to, once I hit day 200 on Duo, I'll have to try my hand at doing that kind of thing. But you'll also see other stuff here on the channel. I did open up a Paldea Vault booster box, so you'll be seeing on that on all the platforms. I did get it a little bit early, although at the time this video releases, it won't necessarily be early anymore, but it was early for me, so that was the exciting thing. But we've got a lot to talk about on this podcast today. Not only do we have a review, but we have a bunch of news in regards to, collectors, players alike, as well as, some important information for the World Championships this upcoming fall, and then also some of the best decks for Paldea Evolved if you're going to NAIC, Worlds, whatever. We'll give you the inside scoop, Sean.
Inside scoop. But Jake, do you want to do that review, that sweet, sweet review?
We have a new 5-star review here on the Metapod Podcast, so if you'd like to tell us how we're doing, leave a review, whether it's in the comments of videos, posts, things like that, or on something like Apple, where you can rate and leave a review. We'll read any of the ratings. You don't have to make it 5 stars, be honest, but we do very much appreciate everybody who accurately rates our podcast, especially when it's 5 stars. Ha ha ha.
That's accurately rating our podcast.
Yeah. Truthfully, we're a 4.9 out of 5. Not to pat ourselves on the back there. Anyways, this new one that came in just this past Thursday, quality podcast from Kierkegaard 555. I probably mispronounced that.
I think that's correct.
Anyways, sweet. Quality podcast is the title, 5 stars. I am new to the hobby, and this has been a great way to get a sense of the meta and a good source of news. It's also good quality and easy to listen to. Thank you so much. Sean is again with the brains behind the brawl. That's the new title of the podcast, Brains Behind the Brawl. Sean is the one that gets everything to look pretty and look nice here on this podcast. I just bring the bad jokes and bad transitions.
I will say we did spend 30 minutes trying to fix some tech issues on our side before recording. So
it was. We won't dive in too much, but we literally just had to hit the reset button.
Basically,
if that, we
had to unplug it and plug it back in. That's what.
It's like teaching your father, like, Grandpa, have you tried restarting the computer? That's basically what happened. But enough of that. We've got to get into the news, and there's some good news and bad news in this podcast. So we'll start off with the bad news. The bad news is the Pokemon trading card game online server have now been permanently gone offline ahead of the official release this upcoming Thursday of Pokemon TCG Live. So if you try to log in to Pokemon TCGO, as you're listening to this and even before, you will not be able to get in, play a game, look at your collection. I think it's donezo. They're
Jake,
done. So
I'm going to offer, if you want to remove your hat, a moment of silence.
Oh, yeah.
A moment of silence for Pokemon TCGO. All right, that's all it was worth.
I mean, our audio listeners are going to be like, how long are they going to wait there?
What's happening? What's happening? Yep.
But even if maybe you have been busy lately, you know, this is a busy time of year for a lot of people, and maybe you're just now getting into summer vacation, right? Especially if you're in school or a teacher or something that revolves around school like myself. You will still be able to migrate your account and collection over to Pokemon TCG Live, even though the servers are done. All you got to do is just go into Live and pop in your login that you would of TCGO, and then it'll ask you like, hey, do you want to migrate your account or whatever? And then you do it. I did that. Don't worry. It works. I promise. There have been some bugs and stuff. So if you have some bugs in terms of migrating and things like that, make sure to
contact the company.
Yeah, contact the company with that. But also remember to migrate before Thursday, because I think if you do, you'll get the global beta rewards. I think they're still active. I actually don't know. I just thought of this.
That's a good point.
Of the whim.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get a deck box, sleeves, and a coin, I think, in the game of, you know, joining. It's at least that in terms of the rewards for participating in the global beta. So might as well just go ahead and do that. Might as well just get that over with. But, you know, that's it. We'll see. We'll talk about this next podcast, how the official release of Pokemon TCG Live is. So make sure you stick around for that pain and suffering, I guess. But Sean, what do we have next here on the podcast?
Next up on the agenda is a Tinkaton GameStop promo. You know, they can't get enough of giving us promos for Tinkaton, because we have the regular Tinkaton, we have the stamped pre-release Tinkaton. Is there there's an illustrator art Tinkaton?
Deck. Yeah, there's an illustrator.
There's an illustrator.
Well, I think it's called Art Rares.
Sure.
Art Rares of the Tinkating, Tinkatuff, and Tinkaton EX.
Oh, but there's not a regular Tinkaton. Okay.
I don't know if there's one for the regular Tinkaton. I'm trying to think of the polls that I've seen. I don't actually know. It would make sense if there was, but because there's one of Tinkaton EX, I bet there's not.
Yeah, I doubt there is actually. Now I'm thinking about it.
Either way, there's a lot of Tinkaton stuff.
So,
and there's going to be the Tinkaton deck.
Yes, the
remember?
EX deck.
I don't
or is
know
it a regular?
If that's gonna,
Who knows?
I'm sure
I think
there's
it's an
probably
EX.
actually both.
Yeah, it's an EX deck. That's where you're going to find the regular version of the Tinkaton EX, because technically the only Tinkaton EX in Paldea Evolved is the full art version, weirdly.
It's just like all weird. The secret rares.
Yeah.
You know, like all the non-regular rare.
Anywho, GameStop is giving away a promo of Tinkaton starting on June 9th, which is why we're talking about all of these alternate versions, which is the day that the set officially releases in stores. So this Friday, basically. That's Friday, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we have any photos of the promo, but the promo will almost certainly have a GameStop stamp in the bottom right.
Well, we hope. I mean,
they've done that.
I feel like GameStop has been like on and off with their consistency on this. Like it just used to be black. Now the Lechonk was red. Like,
who knows?
What's this one going to be? Is it black? Is it green?
I don't know. I will say I might, if you do end up playing the Tinkaton, you might actually find that the GameStop promo version is technically the highest rarity of
max rarity Tinkaton.
I would love that.
Deck.
I would love a bunch of GameStop Tinkatons if that ever becomes a playable card.
I mean, well, I guess Oink alone has not been a very good
No.
deck, so we haven't seen the max rarity Lechonks
No, we have not.
out there, little baby Lechonks. But again, you do have to make a $15 purchase of Pokemon TCG product at the GameStop to be able to get this Tinkaton. More than likely, sometimes they just kind of give it to you if you ask.
Yeah.
Who knows? But if you want to know the official rule that they tell GameStop is they got to buy $15 of Pokemon product.
Yep.
So that is out there for all you collectors and for all you players and maybe some spectators as well. TBCI has officially announced news revolving around the Worlds 2023 spectator badges. So just a reminder, this fall, the World Championships is going to be in Yokohama, Japan. So that is very exciting. A lot of people are interested. A lot more people lately are getting their Worlds invites, right? Especially with Milwaukee that happened. Fresno's coming up. NAIC coming up as well this month. A lot of different events are going to be going on. And if you are looking to be a spectator over there, maybe you're like me, you didn't qualify, but you've got time and money and you want to take a vacation out to Japan. Sean, aren't you going? Are you going during? Yeah. Okay. So you're not going again.
No.
Okay. I couldn't remember. Anyways, if you want to go over there and just spectate, you are going to have to register your interest in getting a spectator badge. So one of the cool things, longtime listeners of the podcast may just like nod their head and be like, okay, yeah, a lottery for this stuff. Because we've talked about with several like sets that have released in Japan, different what was the
Unigaba.
EV? Yeah, Unigaba, like there was a lottery for that too. I believe, and they've like Japan has done lotteries for so long.
Yeah.
Of Pokemon TCG product in general.
For your reference, the Pokemon Cafe, I think it might be a lottery, or you have to sign up far in advance. Like all of the events and things that you go to in Japan too that are Pokemon related either have very long lead times you have to sign up, or they're lottery as well.
And we talked about previously in the interview that you did, Sean, with Ethan, over while you were in Japan, about how just getting into tournaments in general, was a kind of lottery system.
The league championships are a lottery system in Japan.
Yeah, so this is nothing new, so no need to be in an uproar about it. If you're, this should not be a surprise to many people. And if you want to register your interest for a spectator badge, do it ASAP. Like, stop listening to the podcast and go do that now, because it closes June 7th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. So that is like literally less than 48 hours from when this podcast originally airs.
Yep.
It closes very, very soon. So make sure that you do that. Stop listening to the podcast, put it on pause, or keep listening as you go sign up and go do that. The random drawings will take place on June 8th. Individuals will be emailed and have 72 hours to purchase the two badges. They will cost about 2,000 yen each, or $15 USD. And when you pick up your badge from Worlds, you'll receive 2 booster packs. No word on what the booster packs will be. If it'll be like the newest Japanese set, if it'll be like Paldea Evolved. Yeah, I'm actually kind of curious about what it would be.
A part of me is like, because it's Worlds, but it's in Japan, so will they be English cards or will they be Japanese?
Yeah. Or will it be like based on the region that you're in when you sign up for your spectator badge? Like, and by region, what I mean is like, if you're from Japan, you get 2 Japanese packs, but if you're anywhere else, really, you get like English packs or something like that.
My guess,
not in every single language, but at least like, the 2.
My guess is that this will be in English because it's being run by the Pokemon Company International. Mm-hmm. So Worlds is run by the international scene, which always gives out English packs. When I went to Worlds in 2019, they gave out packs of XY Evolutions, I believe.
Oh.
Which it was not standard legal, but it was a very popular
older set. Yeah.
In 2019, nobody cared. I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
Everybody sells the packs for like crazy money these days. But in 2019, it was basically like one step above Steam Siege.
Yeah, I mean, people were literally getting prizes of booster boxes,
Yeah.
and they were immediately trying to just give it away for money or trade for cards.
Yeah. But my gut would be that it'll probably, I doubt it will be the Obsidian Flame set, because I don't know if that set releases by the time Worlds happens.
What about the 151?
See, this is where it gets weird. It's like 151 releases in Japan before this, obviously. But the special version of 151, I don't think is going to be released in English until maybe October.
Oh, okay.
So I'm really like, it might be Paldea Evolved. It might be Scarlet and Violet base. Maybe you will get Obsidian Flame if the date of release is before that. It might be. Who knows?
Who knows? No idea. But again, reminder, go sign up now if you have not already and you're looking to go, because they will not be sold at Worlds.
No, and
then they won't be, like, you can't get in the door and try to buy one or anything like that.
And they are probably not transferable. Important to know, because it's not like you will be shipped a ticket. It will be a pickup. So you will go to Worlds, you will tell them your name. They'll probably ask for some form of identification to make sure that it's you. And then you will receive the ticket. So also, like, although it's not confirmed, my guess is that you get a ticket, awesome. If you don't get a ticket, do not try to buy a ticket from somebody. You know, that ain't gonna work. Unless you are committed to buying a ticket the day that the event happens, when people maybe will sell their lanyards to randoms.
I will say, though, it is confirmed by Arcanine Labs over on Twitter. It was confirmed last week that competitors for the World Championships will get 2 spectator badges in addition to their competitor badge. So if you've got, maybe you're traveling with your partner or something, going to a vacation, right? You plan on spending like 2 weeks or 3 weeks over in Japan or something, or maybe you and a travel crew, right? Maybe one of your buddies at your local league is looking to get a spectator pass. That may be a way to where maybe you miss the window or you don't get picked in the lottery to be able to go. I don't know how the distribution of those spectator badges for the competitors, like the competitors have to submit like 2 names, or they just get 2 spectator badges in the bag. Like, I don't know how that works specifically, but if you do know someone that's just like traveling alone to the championships and you want to go, right? And you want to go, maybe just be like, hey, can I pay you $15 for the spectator pass? Right, as part of your thing, you're spending the same amount of money. So, and who's going to turn down some, $15, right? I mean,
I mean, I will be interested to see like how many total passes there are, because they're probably going to be about maybe 1,000, maybe like 1,000 to 2,000 participants is my guess, maybe more. But if we even said conservatively 2,000 players with 2 spectator badges each, that's 6,000 attendees. Maybe there's like another 4,000 badges for this.
And now, are you just thinking of the
capacity?
Are you just thinking of the card game, or are you thinking of the video game Unite, that's actually Pokemon Go?
That's a very good point. Like you have Unite, you have Pokemon Go, you have VGC. Man, this is going to be a huge event. Because that's impressive.
Yeah, I just don't know how many spectator passes they'll give out. I mean, if it'll be interesting to see.
They're guaranteeing 2 to every competitor, so that's a lot already. So, but I don't know how many the lottery that they're gonna have.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know exactly like the venue that it'll be at, and like how big it is, how spacious it is, how much food options are there, how many bathrooms are there right at the venue, for the competitors and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes, but I'm glad at least that they're giving spectator badges to competitors. I don't know. Have they done that in the past?
I don't think they've ever done spectator badges because they've never needed to, right? Like,
I don't know. I mean,
I could be wrong, but like, I think for Worlds 2019, like it was not hard at all to get a badge. Just maybe last year for London they did, and it just went over our heads.
Well, I mean, there's also like COVID stuff, right? For London. I mean, they were still being
cautious.
slightly cautious. This is the first time they've really full swing.
Yeah, but I
This
mean,
in 2023.
I think almost actually now that I'm thinking about it, Jake, the 2 spectator badges per competitor is almost a necessity if you are a parent, a set of parents accompanying
Yeah,
someone in
definitely.
juniors.
Yes.
Because it's like, oh, our
Yes.
kid's going, but we can't get in. It's like that. You can't work like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's good news because I think
yeah.
we talked about on the podcast the parents.
Mm-hmm.
At least when the location of Worlds was announced.
Yeah, I mean that. Yeah, if you have a kid that's been competing in juniors, look, that it's going to be in Japan for a while now, so it's no surprise. But whew, I mean that'll be fun.
It'll be good news for that. So
yep.
Anyway, Sean, but if you're preparing for the World Championships, right, or maybe Fresno, NAIC, right,
NAIC in particular.
you probably want to know the best decks moving on from Paldea Evolve. So although the set is just released and there's no official events, probably outside maybe your locals having a local league night or online tournaments saying Paldea Evolved, we don't really know what the best decks are per se in terms of how it's going to play out in the entire world or North American internationals. But we can talk about how they've been doing in Japan because Japan is usually a pretty good indicator, a startup, as you can say. Obviously, there are some differences in the meta around the world, but we can kind of see what the top decks are and what they look like so you can start building. And Sean, there's one deck that feels really, really good. It's arguably going to be the best deck in format that just happened to win. I will say Milwaukee Championships, former world champion Henry Brand winning with this archetype. So Sean, what is the archetype for anyone who doesn't know?
I mean, the archetype is my personal favorite, Gardevoir EX. It's surprising to me, the list, though. I had a quick look at a couple of these Gardevoir lists, and they're largely, they're not particularly different. There's a couple of minor changes, but it's amazing to me how little is changed, but how only changing one card makes all the difference in your worst matchup.
I will say again, this is from Champions League Niigata. This is Japanese Champions League, major tournament over there. Almost 3,000 players at this event. So this is the number one deck in 3,000 players. Granted, as we're talking about.
Granted, best of one.
Yeah, best of one, but I mean, if you're going through 3,000 players,
yes, it's still it's a good indicator, and I don't think it's that different from what we're seeing here. People have Gardevoir is good, but I will say, looking at the deck now, for all the players out there who are into Gardevoir, maybe been following it, maybe are watching some of the Milwaukee videos and recaps, the actual line of Pokemon here is almost unchanged, right? You've got your 4 Ralts, your 4 Kirlia. You've got a 2-2 split of Gardevoir between the EX and the baby. You have a Zacian, Cresselia, a Mew, Radiant Greninja, and Manaphy. You might play around with maybe 2 Zacian, you might play around with only one of the baby Gardevoir, but for the most part, it's a bit the same.
Have you seen the Buddy Catch Gallade that people have been playing?
I played against that at Hartford. I had that played against me.
I don't know if Buddy Catch Gallade is the best card to put in. I don't know if it's better than just a second Shining Arcana Gardevoir or the Cresselia or the Manaphy, but I thought it was really cool.
Hey, if you can guarantee a supporter every single turn, especially Jake, if your supporter is the new supporter Iono. I know we talked about Iono in our set review, but I think this is the reason that Gardevoir goes from being questionable in the format. I know it won Milwaukee, but being questionable in the format to being the top tier deck, because you are one of the few decks that can easily draw out of a low Iono hand. Your opponents, it's very unlikely, especially Lost Box, who their whole strategy is, get the cards, build up their resources, and, win in the late game by attrition and having exactly what they need to win. If you Iono them down to 1 or 2, it can be game over for them at the end of the game when all you need is a turn of them not attacking with Sableye or whatever. So
it's even disruptive in not necessarily in the event of going from just like 2-1, like these very, very small hands, but also in the sense of like, you know, they've Comfade a couple times, maybe they Colress, and it's still early in the game, you know, they still have like 6-5 prizes, but you take their hand from like a built-up hand of 8 all the way down to 6, you know, of just like random cards in their deck. You know, you put all the good cards back in there to potentially get in a weird, awkward lost zone situation.
Yep.
With the Colress experiment or the Comfade. So it has a lot more to it than, you know, like the disruption factor is huge in any parts of the game, I feel like.
Yeah.
In that matchup specifically.
Yeah. So, like, if that helps you with your worst matchup, and the question is, okay, well, what else about the deck has changed? The answer is not a ton. I think there's 2 other cards in the deck that help a lot. One of them is Super Rod. So Super Rod, back in the format for the first time in a few years, lets you shuffle up to 3 in any combination of Pokemon and or basic energy. You're probably not shuffling basic energy back in, to be honest, but
I don't know.
You might. There's a world.
I mean, how many times? I mean, yeah, you're probably right. I mean, you're probably more than likely shuffling Ralts and Curlia back in, a Manaphy as well.
Yep.
Putting that back in. But I don't know how many times did we see in Milwaukee, you know, I mean, there was a couple times that Gardevoir was streamed, but especially late that, you know, they needed the attachment rather than a Psychic Embrace from the Gardevoir EX. They needed an attachment because it would, you know, keep it out of range in terms of the damage modifiers or something like that. I don't know. It Super Rod, I feel like, it's not underrated in a sense of like people are going to be including this card in a bunch of decks and especially Gardevoir, but I feel like its value of putting an energy back in, like a single energy, is super undervalued at this point.
Yeah, because if you have a low deck, you can always Gardevoir Shining Arcana, 1 energy without putting any damage counters. And in certain matchups, like Lost Box, if you're attacking with something that has no damage on it, especially Gardevoir or Cresselia, you're basically saying, hey, that Cramorant's not going to do it. You got to bring out something more juicy for me. And then the last card that's in this, which is really interesting, is the Reversal Energy. So for those of you who don't know, Reversal Energy, it gives you 3 of any color of energy, but only if you are behind on prizes and only on an evolution Pokemon that has no rule box. So there's really only one target in your deck for this, but it is the Shining Arcana Gardevoir. With 1 attachment from hand, you're basically adding 90 damage to your attack. So now that Shining Arcana Gardevoir, let's say you didn't put any energy on it until this moment. You throw 3 energy on with that, and then you can put another 6 energy on before it's knocked out, which you're not allowed to after that. But you have 9 energy, which now makes your damage 300 and what would that be? 330? Yeah.
Yes.
330 damage on a 1 prize Pokemon. So that takes out a Mew VMAX, right? That takes out a Duraludon VMAX. Yeah. So you can do a lot more with a lot less, just with 1 card. So
it's very interesting as well. Other options that you can put in there that we've seen a while. As Sean's moving on, I will say one of the supporters that you should go get, that I'm starting to see a lot more, and not just in, I mean, especially in Gardevoir, but just in a lot of decks in general, is Worker.
Yep.
Worker is a card that we haven't really talked about, and I think, I mean, it's a one of in most all decks that it's placed in, but being able to draw 3 cards and then discard a stadium in play for the Worker is just sometimes really, really good, right? Path to the Peak is in there. You can get rid of that if you're not playing 4 stadiums or could easily find a stadium.
Yeah.
Just like get rid of a collapsed stadium so you can put another Pokemon down. Like there's so much with that and just being able to utilize that. I mean, it's get your worker full arts. I think they're going to go up a little bit.
Yeah, I do like worker. It draws you 3 cards. It discards that stadium. Like it, I played it in my Gardevoir deck. It was a nice card. The one card that I'm not seeing in here, which like this might be a factor of Japanese format versus US. Maybe this card isn't needed anymore. I'm not seeing Penny, and like that's a little surprising to me because there is the strategy in a Gardevoir matchup that if you put all your energy somewhere, all your opponent needs to do is boss something into the active. Some of your Pokemon, they won't be able to retreat. So it can be a little worrisome, but I suppose it's also a damage counter situation. So I suppose if you're trying to make space, then like Penny is cuttable, I suppose. But yeah, that's the only other surprise. But I wanted to quickly talk about the other aspect of Gardevoir that's not in the winning deck, but is featured in other decks. And that is, you could also go with the Drifloon build. Jake, what does this Drifloon do?
The Drifloon option, 70 HP, basic psychic type Pokemon, does 30 times damage for each damage counter on the Pokemon. So with the energies, if you psychic embrace all of them, you can, or it's put 2 damage counters, right? So you can put 3 energies on this. It only has a 2 energy cost of 2 psychic, but if you put 3 on there, that is 60 damage times 30. So you could do an easy 180 damage to be able to trade along. Now, this list specifically doesn't play a Bravery Charm.
That's the weird part.
Bravery Charm is an option, though, for this Drifloon. The Bravery Charm is a tool card that is attached to basic Pokemon, gives them 50 more HP. So more HP on your Drifloon equals more, damage output. But I think there's a couple big reasons for this Drifloon, at least in the second place list, that doesn't include the Bravery Charm. One of those being that it's just a 1 prize exchange, right? I think the big reason for this Drifloon is you just want to exchange 1-to-1 with 1 prizers, right? Or being able to, if you have to do some chip damage prior, finish it off with the Drifloon. But I think also a lot of players ran into a card that is included in this list, Lost Vacuum. Right? Lost Vacuum. There's a lot of decks playing Lost Vacuum right now. Like Mew VMAX is playing 4 Lost Vacuums. Lost Box is playing Lost Vacuums. This Gardevoir right here is playing Lost Vacuum, right? Lost Vacuum is a very, very good card to be able to get rid of tool cards, stadium cards, things of that nature. And I think some people ran into this issue where, like, and here's how I see it, like, people would Lost Vacuum the Bravery Charm off the Drifloon, and if you have 100 damage counters on the Drifloon, but it lives because it has 120 HP with the Bravery Charm, once you take that Bravery Charm off, it's knocked out. And you know what? It's still your opponent's turn. Yep. So they can still do things and attack after they've taken that prize card. So they get like multi-prize cards in that turn. So I think that's the 2 biggest things I feel like why the Bravery Charm is not on the Drifloon. I think if Lost Vacuum wasn't as prevalent in the format, you'd probably see it a lot more. And there's probably still people that will play it and strategies that still will do pretty all right with that. But I think that's the biggest reason, the biggest 2 reasons for me.
That's like really insightful, Jake. Like I hadn't thought about that. I was like, why would you play something that can only do 180 when you could do 300 damage with the Bravery Charm? And I think, yeah, the whole point of the Drifloon is like, I'll take 2 prizes with my 1 prizer. Well, that's great, but then if your opponent Lost Vacuums and knocks out whatever you throw up there, you've given away at least 2 prizes, maybe 3 in response. So it's like, oh, that didn't work the way I was expecting.
Yeah, I mean, like often enough, if you're trying to take a multi-prize knockout, like with just a huge hitter, you just go with the Zacian, right? Yeah. I mean, that's what I feel like is the big heavy hitter. So yeah, I mean, it's nice to have 2 different heavy hitters. I mean, you kind of do actually with the Gardevoir with Brainwave because it does more damage for each energy attached to it, right? And you were talking about how reversal energy, which is also in this list that we're showing on screen right now, also has that potential to hit 300. So it's an interesting situation that I think kind of makes sense once you play it out in the meta. You know, like you tried this idea, but I don't know. One of the two options for tool cards as well, Sean, there are two options. Now, let me know which one you prefer. Do you like Sky Sealstone or Forest Sealstone better?
I'm a Forest Sealstone guy.
Mm-hmm.
The reason being is Forest Sealstone gets you any card from your deck whenever you need it. There are gonna be games where you're like, I am either in a bad spot and I need a way out. So like, turn one, if you're like, I have a terrible hand, I have one Ultra Ball, right, or one Fog Crystal, but I have the Forest Sealstone in hand too. Well, cool. I can Fog Crystal, grab Zacian, throw the Sealstone, grab a Battle VIP pass, and all of a sudden my hand went from absolutely terrible to
having like 3 Ralts on the board.
Exactly. And so that for me is like why I choose Forest Sealstone, is it gets you out of a bad spot, but Forest Sealstone is also a great card if you play it and you're like, I want to go fast during turn 2. I can get into a Gardevoir EX much more easily by just going and grabbing one of my rare candies, or by grabbing the Gardevoir EX, pop that on. I'm attacking turn 2, which is a whole other, thing that you can do with that. Whereas Sky Sealstone, it only really gives you an extra prize if you're attacking with the Zacian specifically. And if you are attacking into a V-Star Pokemon, I think it is.
V-Max or V-Star.
Right, which I'm like, okay, Lugia is a good example. You take 3 prizes instead of 2.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, there are lots of decks in at least Champions League. Like, I think the Sky Sealstone makes sense in the Champions League, because if you go back to the standings of the Champions League, there are only 2 just regular Lost Box decks. Every other deck in the top 16 plays some sort of
Giratina.
Well, actually no. Like there's Arceus Giratina V-Stars, right? Lugia V-Star, Goodra V-Star, as you were saying, Mew V-Max, right? I guess the Gardevoirs, if you're in the Gardevoir mirror match, it doesn't matter really, because V-Union with the Mewtwo doesn't equal the same, but that's still a majority of decks in that section that have, the capabilities to utilize Sky Sealstone. Lost Box is not as prevalent as it was like in Milwaukee, where 3 of the top 8 players were playing the same 60 cards in their Lost Box decks.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's my opinion. I've always liked Forest Sealstone because it's like, it's just a consistency piece, whereas like Sky Sealstone, yeah, there will certainly be games where it's the difference between you winning and losing. That one extra prize is the only thing that saved you. Fair enough. But
I will say, I think Henry Brand, in one of his interviews after one of his games, when people were asking about the Forest Sealstone, he said that he also, for the same exact reason that you said, preferred the Forest Sealstone, because it just made your games, it flowed way more.
Yeah.
Be able to get up and get going of what you want to do, because if the deck gets up and get going, like, then the power's in your hands, really.
Yeah. So those are my thoughts. But Jake, in terms of the other decks that are popular, we obviously see a Lost Box deck, despite all the Ionos running around. Lost Box is still a very popular, very powerful deck. But in terms of the new stuff, again, it's pretty straightforward, pretty similar. But you do see the new Luxray, which we talked about.
Which I think is a great card. You're even seeing this in Gardevoir, by the way.
Oh,
but Sean, what about this Luxray?
So this Luxray has an ability that I think it has to be if you're behind on prizes, you can play it from your hand onto your bench directly, which huge, right? And then you think to yourself, well, how am I powering this thing up? Well, in a variety of decks, you could either play the Reversal Energy, or in Lost Box, you're already playing Lightning for Dragonite and Raikou. You're good. You have Mirage Gate. And now you've got a 150 HP single prizer, which is pretty beefy for other Lost Box decks, that can do 180 damage. So all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, well, this is an answer for Lugia. check.
Yeah, your Lugia. I mean,
Right?
before you were just using Raikou for your Lugia matchup, right? You're putting up a 2-prizer, but now your Lugia matchup becomes a little bit more favorable with this little guy because you're, like you said, 150 HP single prize Pokemon hitting for 180 base. Like,
yeah,
your trade is awesome.
I mean, also there's the aspect too where like, hey, if you ping something with a Cramorant early game, if it gets up against something that's like a 280 or a 310 Pokemon or something big, not 310, but some big number, 280. Normally, the way that you have to finish those Arceus and Giratinas or whatever off is you have to then send in a Raikou, send in a Dragonite, or do 2 turns of Sableye damage, which it takes a little long. But with this Luxray, again, you do that little ping damage, or you maybe put damage counters on with Sableye, and then you can follow up with another single prizer to clean up the job.
It's interesting in this list too because this list specifically that we're looking at, we've seen in the last couple events, Azul, Grant Manley, Caleb Gettimer, that friend group all playing 4 energy recyclers, right? And their Kyogre builds. This list specifically does not have the Kyogre in it, right? So there's no finisher of spewing all over the bench Pokemon with Kyogre, but also there's no energy recyclers in this list. Not a single one. It is fully reliant more on the Super Rods, the card that we talked about earlier with Gardevoir. So we'll see which one is better. It could be a go and flow, it's peaks and valleys up over there, but Super Rod is another card that you are going to see in Lost Box decks, and it could be in replace of the energy recycler. Although I've played a little bit of the Lost Box deck, and I think it was Azul that was talking about it in one of his interviews post match. He was like, I don't know how this deck was functioning without 4 recyclers, right? Like,
well, I think the Kyogre version especially, yes.
Oh yeah.
Without those 4 recyclers, you get rid of 1 or 2 of them, and you got to hold on to one to the end of the game, and it just makes your Kyogre attack much less likely. But you know what my gut says, Jake? The reason that Energy Recycler and Kyogre are less valuable in the Paldea Evolve format is because of Super Rod. Because other people can just get their Manaphy's back. So, like, you're out here, like, I'm going to Sableye, I'm going to get rid of that Manaphy. You're taking a turn off, basically, to kill a Manaphy, which never feels great. But you're like, but next turn I'm going to Kyogre. Opponent plays a Super Rod, plays a Nest Ball, Manaphy's right back. And you're like, mother...
It's just wild to see how things can just change on a dime, especially on a set release.
Yeah.
You are still playing you're still playing the Forest Sealstone, this list including a Sky Sealstone as well to give you that flexibility, Do you get that kind of cheeky knockout with the Dragonite V or the Raikou V for an extra prize, or do you need to use the Forest Sealstone to go get, a specific card to help your board state as well? There's also a new stadium in here in this list. It is Artisan,
I think.
It essentially says once during each player's turn, that player may search their deck for a basic Pokemon and put it onto their bench, then shuffle their deck. This is a good card to put in Lost Box because you play all basic Pokemon.
Except for Luxray.
Well, yeah, you can't put Luxray down there, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You're not worried about evolution lines per se. So very good, can help you get another Comfey down, can help you get, Cramorant, Radiant Greninja, the Dragonite or Raikou to be able to use the Forest Sealstone on it. Just a lot of different flexibility options with that stadium. And then you can put it away with the Lost Vacuum, as we mentioned earlier. That card not necessarily new, though, in the deck. The final card that is new, though, in here, Sean, is Jet Energy. This is a single colorless energy, and you may think, like, oh, a single colorless energy when, the Dragonite requires 3 colored energies, Raikou requires a colored one, Sableye requires a colored one, Moonlight Shuriken is 2. What is the Jet Energy for? So, Sean, read to me this card if you can.
This card's great. When you attach it from your hand to one of your bench Pokemon, You switch it with your active. It's a switch energy. That's literally what it is.
It is very, very good for come phase. That's basically the mainstay reason as why you do it. Because think about it. If you got a comfey in the active, comfey on the bench, and maybe another comfey also on the bench, you got 2 on the bench and 1 in the active. You use your flower selecting, right? Flower selecting on the active. Cool. You can you can put the jet energy on a bench comfey, go up, use another flower selecting, and then you have an energy to retreat into that third comfey. So on your first turn, right, without using a support or anything like that, you already have 3 in the lost zone right there, which is kind of, for 1 card, and which is honestly, like, it's a lot of times an ideal state for Lost Box. If your first turn, like going first without a support or anything, can get 3 cards in the Lost Zone, you are sitting usually pretty well in the game in terms of setting up your board strategy and things like that. It can also be used for a bunch of other Pokemon. You know, it could be used for that final energy on the Thumping Snorlax, right? You just Mirage Gate into it,
I was thinking, Jake, if your Snorlax is asleep, say you're attacking with it.
Oh yeah,
it falls asleep in the active. You got to flip 2 coins. Doesn't wake up usually. Well, just throw it on something on the bench and then retreat the thing. Go right back into that Snorlax.
I mean, you think about it. 4 of your attackers that you can utilize in this deck at least need 1 colorless energy. Moonlight Shuriken, Thumping Snore, Luxray, and Raikou. So there's so much flexibility that you can use it as attacking, retreating, promoting. It's an insane card, and I think it's going to see more play as well in other decks. Lugia, for example, is probably going to play this card, at least 1 or 2 of them. Hopefully they remember to attach it by hand, but it's definitely a card that you are going to see in these decks.
Jake, I feel like, is there one other deck that is catching you out here that you like, that you see doing well, that we should keep an eye on?
I think one of the ones that you can keep an eye on is Giratina Lost Box. There's 4 in the top 16 here, and although none of them are in the top 8, I think it is still going to be a popular and prevalent deck in this format. So this has the Lost package, as you can probably tell. You know, you got your Comfeys, Sableye, Cramorant, Greninja, Manaphy as well to protect your bench. And you've got the Giratina V and V-Star to go along with your Colress Experiment. So if you do not remember what the Giratina V and V-Star does, the V has 2 attacks, 1 for a colorless. Look at the top 4 cards, put 2 of them in your hand, put the other cards in the Lost Zone, and then a Shred attack for 160, Psychic, Grass, colorless, and then the V-Star has 2 attacks as well, one of them being the V-Star power. But first, the regular attack, Grass, Psychic, colorless, Lost Impact 280. Put 2 cards attached to your Pokemon in the Lost Zone. This is Pokemon anywhere on the field. This is not just Giratina, right? So you can strategically put like Pokemon on, you know, or energies on the bench and stuff like that, and take from that if you know you're going to have a Giratina for multiple turns in a row attacking, things of that nature. But also, if you have 10 or more cards in the Lost Zone, you can use Star Requiem, the V-Star power, to just knock out the active Pokemon.
Yep.
Doesn't matter the HP, doesn't matter any, just knocks them out entirely.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting deck because, like, you've got, in terms of disruption as well, they seem to be going for a heavy disruption package. You've got 2 Iono and a Roxanne. So lots of hand shuffle or put hand on the bottom and draw a certain number of cards. And you've got 2 Path to the Peak. So, you know, you don't care about Path except for Radiant Greninja. So that's great. And so many decks rely on abilities. And the only deck that really can deal with it easily is maybe Mew, because Mew will be running for Lost Vacuum,
but they have to have the Lost Vacuum right in their hand, and you know, oftentimes, you know, they may discard their vacuums off Ultra Balls, Cramomatic,
or if you Iono them down to 2, and then play that path, and then they're like, well, I can't really draw out of this, so yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see whether or not the Lost engine or the Arceus engine for Giratina is the one that, you know, sticks. Maybe they'll both be around.
This Arceus Giratina list that you pulled up, yep. I'm happy you pulled this up, Sean, because I don't know if you knew, but there's a Flying Pikachu VMAX in this Arceus Giratina, which I think is a pretty interesting inclusion, because if you do not remember, Azul Garcia Griego ended up winning, what was it, OCIC?
I mean, didn't Flying Pikachu VMAX win Worlds too?
Yes, it did. I mean, it won several events recently within the last year. And so Flying Pikachu VMAX being included in this is very, very interesting. Flying Pikachu VMAX with a lightning colorless attack max balloon does 160 during your opponent's next turn. Prevent all damage done to this Pokemon that aren't basic Pokemon. That are from basic Pokemon. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. So basically, stop in Lost Box. Right.
Well, sort of, but Lost Box has escape rope.
Yeah, but that doesn't. I mean, they got an escape rope boss. You know how hard that is to do?
Just escape rope and Sableye it.
I mean, yeah, you're putting 12 damage counters on a 310 HP gigantic VMAX Pokemon.
That's true.
Like, you'd have to do that 3 turns in a row.
But I mean, you could escape rope boss, hit it with Raikou, and you're done. 3 prizes, please.
You're done, bud. 3 prizes. Get that out of there. But interesting stuff going on in this. This deck also, it's the Arceus Giratina package that you usually see, 4422, with also the Bibarel line as well. Bibarel, a very popular option alongside Arceus, and especially the Giratina. You've got a Squovid in there because, I mean, honestly, we talked about it on the podcast. Squovid Bibarel is a really good combination.
So good.
Easy to draw and continuously draw. And this as well is a disruption build, as I think a lot of Arceus Giratina decks have been playing as of late with the Judge path. You're playing 3 of each on the Judge paths, but also now playing some Iono.
Yep. Boy, howdy. Just get ready to shuffle your hand and put it on the bottom of your deck again, everybody.
I mean, yeah, we're going to be in a format with Judge and Iono. So it's going to be a constant making sure. Remember, Iono, if you hear us keep saying Iono and you're like, what the heck does that mean? Maybe you don't know. Iono is a supporter that says each player shuffles their hand and puts it at the bottom of their deck. Then they draw the amount of prize cards they have remaining. And Judge just says, put your hand in your deck and draw 4 cards.
Shuffle.
So I feel like...
And then there's Roxanne.
A lot of... Yeah, and then there's Roxanne. Yeah, Roxanne, that's shuffle into your deck and then draw the amount of prize cards you have. So it's going to be, I feel like there's probably going to be an increase in like prize penalties of, of game states of people accidentally shuffling their hand into their deck because they've been doing just Judge for the last 3 months or whatever. Or Roxanne, or maybe people doing Judge and thinking it's Iono, right? Because they've been Iono'd the last 3 turns in a row, and just it's gonna be interesting, but I'm excited to see it. We won't see the official results for a while, so we'll keep checking the online tournaments as well to give a little bit of an idea of how they're doing and things like that. If there's any surprise decks that come up. Sean, I think I might have to try to play like Wu Chain.
The grass type?
Yeah, the Wu Chen, I think.
I know what you mean. The Wu Chen, yeah.
I will not spoil too much, but with the booster box opening that I did, that will be on YouTube after this podcast airs, I think I got a calling, for it. I think something bigger, Arceus was trying to speak to me. On it. So
did you pull any Fortress as well?
I won't spoil anything.
Okay, I strongly recommend that combination. I'm trying to break that deck.
You'll have to watch the YouTube video. But anyways, this is the end of this week's podcast episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Pokemon podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. Catch us on socials, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, @MetapodTCG. Again, links are in the descriptions below, and we'll see you next week.